As the Age of Ancients came to a close, a single warrior driven by fury and passion emerged from the smoke and ashes. Lord of Sunlight, Gwyn and his 3 associates issued in the Age of Fire, but such a time of peace was doomed to end, and only by giving a part of himself was Gwyn able to extend the age. Now a husk of his former self, Gwyn keeps watch over the dying First Flame as a destined hollow approaches.
With the advent of universes beyond, Magic the Gathering has released cards that reflect a host of iconic, popular, and interesting franchises. In this series, we'll take a look at fan-favorite characters from different mediums and muse on what their cards may look like. In the spirit of universes beyond, join me today in asking the question, what if... Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. My name is Kieran, my face is itchy, and welcome to What If MTG. No, that's not right. We know What If MTG. This is MTG What If. It's the reverse. We're asking, not what is magic, we're asking, what if something was in magic? MTG What If. And today we are asking the question, what if Dark Souls was in Magic the Gathering? Today we are looking at another Dark Souls Commander card, and it's supporting cards alongside it. We've all been there. You're a king of a land, you're lord of your land, you're lord of something. There's that important thing that you gotta do, and you do it. Things are great for a while, and then, you know, society starts to break down, people start to die, a curse is placed on all of the people around you. Just typical, you know, weekly, monthly stuff in anyone's life. And then you realize you have to do it again. And when you do it again, prolong it, but at the cost of a part of your soul. I know you've been there, I've been there. Generally speaking, what I'm talking about is cleaning the house. You know, you gotta keep, it's just upkeep. It's really just upkeep at the end of the day. And today we are looking at the Master of Upkeep. You probably already know because it was in the thumbnail and in the intro, but I like to keep it a mystery. So let's jump into the first card.
The light shall not die so long as I draw breath.
Alright, today's card is none other than the final boss of Dark Souls 1 himself, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder is a legendary noble warrior god, and he costs 3 colorless, and then a split white or black mana, and a red mana. You can see in this art done by Shirrako that Gwyn didn't always look like this. He used to be more human, and now he's become a lot more hollowed. Definitely needs some skin care. But when he was more of a god, he was probably gonna be more of a white and red Boros card. But because of, you know, the sacrifices he's made and the toll that's been taken, we're gonna introduce black into his color identity, but make it optional. It's kind of his duality of between being black and a white card. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder is a 5 mana 5/5 with Defender, First Strike, and Boss Soul Gwyn. So he's very tough to kill. You're only going to be able to beat him in combat more than likely, and when he dies, your opponent's going to get a Boss Soul Gwyn. The reason that he's so cheap, he's a 5 mana 5/5 with First Strike, is because he does have Defender. So he's actually only a defensive piece, and that is representative in Dark Souls in the fact that Gwyn just sticks around the Kiln of the First Flame where he defends the First Flame and never leaves. So you might be like, okay, it's kind of lame. He's a First Strike Defender 5/5. The thing that is cool about Gwyn is when he enters the battlefield, you get to create the First Flame, a legendary red and white artifact token with, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. No more than 1 creature can attack you each combat. And when a creature deals combat damage to you, sacrifice this artifact and destroy all non-black, non-land permanents. The first part acts kind of like Monarch. So at the beginning of your end step, as long as you control this legendary artifact, you're going to draw a card. So that's an extra card draw every turn. Quite powerful. And no more than 1 creature can attack you each combat. That's to represent the fact that, like, getting to Gwyn is a near impossible feat to begin with. And by the end of the game, it's just you going in and maybe a summon or 2. So only 1 creature can come at Gwyn at any time. That's why he has Defender, to kind of defend this 1 attacker coming in, 1 blocker to defend. Now, his last ability, when a creature deals combat damage to you, is to represent the fact that when a creature finally beats Gwyn, in this case by dealing combat damage to the player, you're actually going to make the decision to either prolong the Age of Fire or go into the Age of Darkness. This is to represent the fact that you're choosing to go into the Age of Darkness. So when a creature deals combat damage to you, sacrifice this artifact, That's the first flame going out, and then destroy all non-black, non-land permanent. Kind of a good thing in some ways, because if you tech out your deck to be mostly black permanents, then you're not really going to mind if they come at you. So it kind of gives your opponent a bit of pause before they come at swinging at you. And they're only going to be able to swing at you with one thing anyways. So Gwyn actually, even though he has Defender, and he's not very exciting as a creature, he sets up this really weird lock that your opponents have to get through, where you're going to be drawing card advantage and building up your board, and they're really going to have to work together to be able to get over you. Probably having to destroy the first flame manually, and then removing Gwyn themselves, because obviously when you get hit and you blow up all their stuff, nobody's going to want that. Kind of puts your opponents in this interesting position and makes for a kind of interesting Mardu control deck that I think is very cool. But you didn't just come here for the commander, you came here for the support cards, and today's support cards are spicy. There's a couple that I actually really love. So let's jump into the first one.
What is bravery without a dash of recklessness?
All right, by popular demand, we are going to look at the first support card, which is Hawkeye Go. Now, this is an interesting one because Hawkeye Go is kind of a bonus legendary for you guys. I haven't been doing legendary creatures up until this point as the support cards because the main focus was to do the main creature as the legendary creature. The backstory is that Gwyn actually had 4 knights that were kind of his like primary knights. The first knight was actually Ornstein. Ornstein was the knight captain of the Knights of Gwyn. The second knight was a knight called Artorias, who was kind of this anti-dark vigilante type knight. And then the third, which is the one we're looking at today, is the captain of the Dragon Slayers, which is Hawkeye Go. He is a giant archer knight, and also, I just want to quickly apologize, I don't remember the 4th knight. It's this female knight that dresses very similar to Artorias, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but maybe we'll see her in a future episode. But Hawkeye Go is the one we're looking at today. He's a giant archer knight for 5 mana, 3 colorless, a red and a white. He's Boros colors. He's actually a blind character, so in the game you find him, he's been blinded, but that doesn't stop him being this awesome archer. For 5 mana, you get a 7/5 with reach and defender. Like Gwyn, kind of falls into that defender category. He's going to be defending in the air because Gwyn doesn't actually have reach, so if your opponents have flyers, they can blow up the first flame pretty easily. But with Hawkeye Go on your team, you're going to be able to defend the airs like a champ. He also has Soul 2, so that kind of offsets the fact that he's a 5 mana 7/5 with reach and defender and a bunch of abilities, is that when he does die, your opponent is going to get 2 soul tokens, so sort of giving your opponent a bit more things for a cheaper costed card. The fun thing in Dark Souls, this is when it becomes a bit memey. This was something Colin absolutely loves, is that Hawkeye Go, when he gets blinded, becomes kind of a hermit, gets trapped in this tower basically, and he starts to go down this path of enlightenment and becomes kind of this weird hermit character, and he starts carving things, and you can buy the carvings off him. And it's important to note that in Dark Souls, when you do multiplayer, there's no way to communicate with the other person other than doing gestures, animations, and in this case, using these carvings. So if you bought a carving from Hawkeye Go, you can use it and it'll say this funny little line. That is Hawkeye Go's kind of side pet project, and we see that in his abilities. So he has 3 abilities that are sort of based in the Forgotten Realms design, where we actually give the ability a name. So he has hello, very good, I'm sorry. So hello costs 3 mana, tap him, create a soul token. So that's kind of to represent you like trading with him. He's a bit of a merchant in the game. Very good is 2 colorless and a white mana, tap, go, draw a card. So that's a white ability to draw a card, which is actually quite powerful. But you can activate that only if a creature dealt damage by him died this turn. So this is to represent him finishing off an enemy and you being rewarded by being able to draw a card. And then I'm Sorry is 2 colorless mana and a red mana source. Tap him, destroy a tapped creature with flying. In the game, he totally freaking murks a dragon like it's nobody's business, and it's a really epic moment in the game. And he's blind, and he just like snipes him out of the air. So that's to represent that. And I'm Sorry is just kind of a funny little nod to that. You're apologizing your opponent for blowing up their flying creature. Hawkeye Go, Knight, Captain of the Dragon Slayers of Gwyn, and maybe a fun commander in his own right.
The Age of Fire, Dragons Doomed, can only last so long as the flame is rekindled.
All right, we are looking at my favorite card from today, I think, even more so than the commander himself. This is something I'm kind of proud of. Age of Fire. which is a legendary saga enchantment. Costs 3 colorless, a red, a white, and a black, so it's a 6 mana enchantment. Sagas are a special type of enchantment, if you're not aware, that basically enter with a lore counter, and then they have effects that will go off as they get more lore counters, and when they get their 3rd or 4th lore counter, depending on the card, you basically sacrifice the card. It starts with 1 lore counter, and you'll get an additional lore counter on your draw step, activating the next part of the ability. And it's basically a way to tell a story through a card. Typically, sagas have been shown important MTG stories and lore and legends that are very core to the Magic storyline. Age of Fire is no different. Before Gwyn and the Lords of Cinder took over, the dragons were the big bosses. And then Gwyn and his friends basically found the first flame and all got super souls and basically powered up, took out the dragons, and the Age of Fire began, where it was basically like Age of Peace. I don't actually know how peaceful it was. This is a card to represent that transition. First thing that happens is you destroy all dragon creatures. Kind of a niche ability, probably not going to make a big difference, but if it does, kind of funny. So you're going to remove all dragons from the battlefield, and then you're going to search your library for a legendary creature, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And that's going to actually be important for the next ability. So for 6 mana, you're getting to tutor out a legendary creature. Not a bad effect. On your next turn, when you put a next lore counter, you're going to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you until the start of your next turn. This pairs very well with Gwyn, because if you have the first flame, you're going to want to keep it around, and if you take damage, you're going to have to sacrifice the first flame. So if you have Age of Fire, you're not going to be able to take damage, and you're going to be able to keep the first flame around for 1 more turn. Very strong defensive card. And then the third part is basically the end of the Age of Fire, when the first flame is dwindling and a powerful soul needs to be burnt to reignite it. So you may sacrifice a legendary creature, and if you do, draw 2 cards and remove a lore counter from Age of Fire, thus prolonging the Age of Fire. I thought this was a very clever design. I'm not 100% sure on the mechanics of a 3rd lore counter being placed on it. I don't know if that will automatically trigger the sacrifice. We may have to make a small little errata to the way sagas work to get this to work as intended, but you get the gist of it. The idea is you go from 1 to 2, and then into 3, and if you do a specific thing, you're going to be able to go back to 2. And then you're basically going to be able to continue the Age of Fire as long as you have a legendary creature to sacrifice. And as long as you have that, you're not going to be able to take any combat damage, so your opponents are going to have a very tough time dealing with you. That's Age of Fire, and a card I was actually very excited to share with you guys. Let me know down in the comment section, what do you think of this legendary saga?
Built around the flame of life, it now houses the hollow embers of the dire.
All right, the next card is the Kiln of the First Flame, the final destination for the player in Dark Souls 1. This is this dreary landscape where basically everything's falling apart, turning into dust and ash. So the Kiln of the First Flame is a legendary land, and it counts as a wastes, which is just more flavor than anything else. I don't think anything actually interacts with wastes in any way impactful way. But for those that don't know, wastes is technically the 6th official basic land type. We obviously have swamps, islands, mountains, plains, and forests, but in the Return to Zendikar set, we were introduced to wastes, which were these colorless basic lands that were created by when the Eldrazi came through and just nuked lands and stole all their essence. It really fit Kiln of the First Flame thematically, and so it is a wastes, and it taps for colorless mana as such. It also has an ability where you can tap it and sacrifice a creature or a soul to add a colorless mana and search your library for a mountains, plains, or wastes, and put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end steps. Basically, this is kind of a pseudo tap for 2 mana card, wherein if you have a creature to sacrifice or a soul, you're going to be able to thin your deck of your lands and actually get an additional land to get mana from. So it's kind of an interesting little tech piece to get 2 mana from a card. You know, you see cards like Ancient Tomb that does damage to you, or the Karoo lands that bounce your lands. This is kind of in the same vein of that, but requires a sacrifice of a creature or soul. And that's thematic of your creature or soul being used to fuel the first flame and continue its existence. The land part being that around the Kiln of the First Flames and around the world basically being sustained by this Age of Fire that has been prolonged. This is a card where I would argue we break a bit from the the thematic lore, just to give it more of a Magic the Gathering sort of effect. But even when we do that, I like to sort of make it thematic to the card. So let me know what you think. Do you think this represents Kiln of the First Flame in an accurate way? And maybe this would be a good little spot for a landfall-based strategy as well, because you're going to be able to get a landfall trigger extra every turn. So yeah, let me know what you think of Kiln of the First Flame.
Before linking the fire, Gwyn divided his power amongst his children and set off with only this great sword as his companion.
Alright, we're back into the legendary artifact equipment, and today we are looking at Gwens Sword, the Great Lord Great Sword. So the Great Lord Great Sword is a red legendary equipment. It's 2 colorless and 2 red mana, and has the same ability. It's equip 3 or equipped to a legendary creature for 1. I will fully admit, this card is another kind of break from lore, in that the Great Sword, the Great Sword, Lord Sword, Lord Great Lord Sword, Great Lord Great Sword actually isn't that special in Dark Souls when you get it. Doing research into this weapon, it actually is kind of a weaker weapon that is more just a thematic fun thing than anything else. And so I'm taking a bit of liberties and creating a bit more flavor and theme to this card. Equipped creature gets +3/+0, it is a Great Sword, and has remove a counter from this creature, gain +2/+0 until end of turn. This kind of allows you to put +1 counters and such on your creature, and then equip this sword and burn those counters to give an extra little boost. So kind of a Voltron-y piece of equipment that you'll be able to put onto a creature. It's okay on Gwyn in that you can make him really big if you need to and be able to overcome any creature that comes his way, and he has first strike, so he's going to be able to kill most things first. The second part of the ability is kind of where it ties in though. So if a creature dealt damage by a equipped creature would die this turn, exile it instead and create a number of soul tokens equal to half the creature's mana value rounded down. Basically, if you equip this to Gwyn or even Go, and they kill a creature that costs 4 mana, you're going to get 2 souls. You're going to be able to crack those souls and put the 2/+1 counters on the creature with this equipment, and then from that point on, your creature can burn through those souls, those +1/+1 counters on them, to get +2/+0. Kind of this interesting little soul loop. Gwyn isn't inherently a soul-based card or a soul-based commander like we may see in some other cards, but this is kind of a nice little engine that may pair well and be thematic with the Dark Souls set as a whole.
Loyal servants of Gwyn, their once silver armor has been scorched by fierce battles with demon kin.
All right, we are in the last stretch of today's episode, and we are looking at the loyalist of servants of Gwyn, maybe other than his 4 trusted knights, but these are the Black Knights of Gwyn. Funny enough, had to name this Black Knight of Gwyn because I couldn't just name them like in Dark Souls Black Knight, because there's already a magic card called Black Knight. So we're naming this Black Knight of Gwyn. It is a human knight, costs 1 colorless, a white or a black, and a red. So he's just like his lord in mana cost, color-wise, is a little cheaper. So he's a 3 mana 4/4, and has Vigilance and Soul 1. The reason this card is black instead of being a white and red card is that the Black Knights of Gwyn basically fought the demons that were spawned from the Bed of Chaos, which I'm not even going to get into that whole storyline. But basically, their armor was scorched black through this battles with demons. And so, like Gwyn, they've kind of sacrificed a part of themselves for their lord and their world, their nation, if you will. And so that kind of is reflected in their white and black color identity. They are a 3 mana 4/4, but this is offset by the fact they have Soul 1. So if your opponent kills it, they're going to get a soul token, and they're also 3 colors, so it's a little harder to cast. So it's a 3 mana 4/4 Vigilance and Soul 1. So it also has Exalted, which is whenever a creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1, but it's mainly for itself, because when the Black Knight of Gwyn attacks or blocks alone, it gains your choice of Trample, First Strike, or Lifelink until the end of turn. So this is to kind of represent the fact that each Black Knight that you fight in the game has different equipment. You fight some with axes, some with swords. That is represented on the card by Trample, First Strike, and Lifelink, which also kind of fit this color identities too, of being black, white, and red. Trample, First Strike, and Lifelink being black, white, and red abilities. Yeah, it's kind of a simple design. This is probably the simplest of the designs, but I couldn't not put these knights into the series, and especially because Gwyn's so iconic to the series. This actual image, I think, is from one of the DLC, I think, for Dark Souls, maybe Dark Souls 3, if I recall. The Black Knight of Gwyn, a powerful little attack piece, and it also has Vigilance, so it'll be able to defend the first flame while also attacking and going out into the world to strike out at your opponents. So that is the last support card for Gwyn. All right, we are done with today's episode. We are looking at Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, and asking what if he was in Magic the Gathering. Thank you so much for watching the episode. I hope that you liked the designs. As always, much appreciated if you leave a like, leave a comment down below, let us know what you thought of the designs, and share it with your Magic friends and your Dark Souls friends, the ones that enjoy Magic and Dark Souls, respectively, because I think that it would be fun for them to see this and muse about what the cards may look like, almost as if they were a secret layer of sorts. But my name's Kieran, and this has been Filthy Casuals. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We here at Filthy Casuals are continuing to traverse the multiverse and ask, what if Dark Souls in Magic the Gathering? Today we are looking at Dark Souls, but who knows what the multiverse will bring in the future. I will see you guys in the next episode. Ciao for now.